We'd rather sell it than move it in. The moving in sale is on now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. As we get ready to move into our beautiful new building on Highway 17 South, we're moving out our incredible inventory from the big blue building on Highway 16 West. Save today on our incredible lineup of new and pre-owned vehicles all under the roof. Get special clear-out pricing on all remaining 2023 models. We're getting ready to move in, so come out and see us today for fantastic savings on your new car, truck, or SUV. The moving in sale is on now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. We won't sell you a car, we'll help you buy one.
At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Welcome to Lloydminster Exhibition and the new Lloydminster Nissan Exhibition Grill. Well, Monday morning, the new Lloydminster Nissan will be opening the doors for the first time on that beautiful new building on Highway 17 South. Now, that does mean that there's going to be some moving pains. So the service department at the new Lloydminster Nissan closing tomorrow. They've got a lot of heavier things to move than, say, sales would. So they're going to be closed for a few more days. But you can still come see us out on our temporary location on Highway 16 West in the big blue building. We've wintered there well. It's been a really nice winter being inside, but we're really looking forward to getting inside of town and moving our incredible inventory into town as well. Now, if there was less inventory, that would be great. So come see us right now and you can save on 2023 models, up to $2,000 off a 2023 Qashqai or a 2023 Rogue, and that's below cost, and then $5,000 off of a 2023 Armada, and we've got a couple beautiful ones out there right now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. Well, keep those nominations coming for Feed the Farmer. Feed the Farmer, we're excited to be heading out to see Gerald and Lori Wright tomorrow. We're delivering a nice hot meal courtesy of Sobeys here in Lloydminster, courtesy of Richardson Pioneer, BASF, Invigor, the Tent Guys, Superior Water, Agland, and Diamond 7 Meats. It's a nice hot roast beef meal. We got tablecloths and everything. We make it real fancy, whether we're in the field or whether we are in a shop. But we're looking forward to seeing Daryl and Lori tomorrow. And we want you to keep those nominations coming in on the Facebook pages, because there's still 3 draws to make for meals to be delivered, but there's also 2 draws of $500 gift certificates from Diamond 7 Meats as well. Our guest today, we have got Mayor Gerald Aalbers here. We have the general manager of the Lloydminster Exhibition, Jackie Tomayer, here, and we have Jody Herbus, who is the owner of BioClean Disaster Services, the largest restoration company here in Lloydminster. And of course, I'm going to kind of moderate. Now, there are some things coming up here. We'll just do a couple of quick things. There's a Chase the Ace draw here at the Lloydminster Exhibition tonight, and it's also another steak night. If you want a steak, I suggest you get down here early. They're just $20, so you can enjoy a nice steak while you wait for that ace to be drawn here at the new Lloydminster Nissan Exhibition Grill. The tickets, again, are only $10 each. There's 48 cards remaining. Jackpot is over $30,000 now. And if you're looking to improve your odds, you can get 3 tickets for $25, 8 tickets for $50, or 20 for $100. This Saturday, the Lloydminster District Co-op Marketplace brings Helping Hands Hurrah into their parking lot. Families can explore all kinds of emergency vehicles, meet some first responders, enter to win a gift basket, and enjoy lunch with citizens on patrol. That's going to be a barbecue that runs 11 to 3 on Saturday with the RCMP, the Lloydminster Fire Department, the Medivy Ambulance, and Lloyd Rescue Squad will be there as well. And will you be applying to go on Family Feud? Ryan Savine is a casting producer with Family Feud, and he got in touch with us to tell us they were looking for some families from our area. Why? Because simply, they just generally don't get a lot of applications from our area. Evan Dagenhart from The Goat here in town, he has been on Family Feud. So he joined us yesterday and said it's a great family bonding experience.
3-day trip to Toronto paid for, meals included every day, lifetime of memories, and I think we all ended up, because you get money for the points you make during the game, I think we all ended up getting $523 Canadian.
Hey, that's pretty good. Plus a trip to, and you didn't win any of the fast money.
Didn't win fast money, got $500 in the pocket, trip to Toronto covered.
Yeah.
And an absolute amazing memory for 3 days with my first cousins. And I got the group chat going right now. I said, hey guys, I'm gonna go talk Family Feud. They're like, that's awesome. We talk every day still. That was a bonding experience that will never ever be topped, I think.
Part of the problem with getting families to apply from Lloydminster is they do film in September, and I know that's harvest season, so it's going to be a little hard to get farming families onto the show. BioClean Disaster Services. I'm really nervous about doing this because we have the owner of BioClean Disaster Services sitting right next to me.
Nothing to go wrong here now, Kurt.
Yeah, you can't blow this, can you? Listen, BioClean Disaster Services is a local company here in Lloydminster. They're committed, they're certified, they're reliable, and they are very local. And they're committed to getting your life back to where it was before the disaster. Yes, they take care of your property. Yes, they take care of your belongings. But more importantly, they take care of you and your family. And when you talk to their customers, they will tell you that communication is a really big thing with BioClean Disaster Services, keeping you up to date on what is happening with your restoration, whether that is business or whether that is your home. You can call Jody Herbus at 1-833-246-8326. That's BioClean Disaster Services. When we come back, we're going to talk about the carbon tax and its effects on local business, on not-for-profits, and communities.
The battle is on. The Alberta Hot Tub and Swim Spa Blowout Expo, May 9th to 12th. Lloyd X Grounds in the Culligan Water Building. 5 brands, over 30 models, 1 location. Fighting for your business with factory direct pricing and huge discounts. Save up to $10,000 on hot tubs, up to $25,000 on swim spas, 50% off massage chairs, plus cold plunges, saunas, and more. Easy on-site financing, best rates in the industry. The Alberta Hot Tub and Swim Spa Blowout Expo, May 9th to 12th, 10 till 7 daily. Lloyd X Grounds. Don't miss it.
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
It's more than just taxes at L&A CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at L&A CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. L&A CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster.
Welcome back to Lloydminster Exhibition. Wellings of Lloydminster is now offering 1 or 2 bedroom gorgeous villas for those that are 55 and over. If you haven't taken a tour yet, we strongly suggest you do. These are gorgeous 1-story villas. They come with tax and maintenance all included, and they're really great for those that are struggling with health issues or starting to struggle with health issues, or those that just want to lay back and take life a little bit slower, maybe go on vacation and not have to worry about what is happening back home. Maybe you just have a bad neighborhood that you're in and you want to get into a more adult neighborhood. Well, that's what this is all about. Your neighbors, in fact, can join you in the nice clubhouse that they are building right now. If you want to have a pet, you can have a pet. Remember that it is all independent. So you got your own thermostat, you've got your own appliances, and you've got some nice big picture windows and in-floor heating as well. If you haven't taken a tour, call Darlene and do so. 780-872-8537. That's Wellings of Lloydminster. So we're going to talk about the carbon tax today. And in doing so, we started to have these conversations. We've had talks with individuals, we've had talks with some farmers, and now this has come up because I saw a post by Jackie on Facebook saying how much that they pay in the carbon tax here at the Lloydminster exhibition. So once again, let me introduce our guests. We have Jody Herbus from BioClean Disaster Services, Jackie Tomayer from the Lloydminster exhibition, and Mayor Gerald Aalbers, of course, the mayor of Lloydminster. And Mayor, this might be the best place to start. You wrote a letter to the federal government and asked them to pause the carbon tax increase on April 1st. Why did you feel you needed to send a letter to the federal government?
Certainly, the federal government has control of the carbon tax, and from the perspective, it was important to share a message that I had heard very loud and clear. I've heard other messages, including axe to tax very clearly, but from that perspective, we thought this was an opportunity that the government might just take a moment and reflect on what's going on throughout the country. Doesn't matter if you're on the East Coast and you're fishing, or the lobster season are on right now, and the lobster fishermen are talking about increased costs. Their fuel costs have gone up to operate those fishing boats. You're on the West Coast, you've got loggers and people harvesting timber. And of course, we're just getting ready to go seeding right now. And you can imagine the costs that farmers are incurring, let alone every other business and resident in this country, including the folks sitting at this table. We can all bring different views, and we tried to bring that to the federal government. As you know, our MPs for the city are both in the opposition benches and have raised the issue, but we felt communicating directly to the government of Canada on behalf of the city residents and surrounding area was important.
Who did you hear from? You said, we've heard from. Who did you hear from?
Heard from the opposition. Thanked us for the letter. Haven't heard from the government and did not receive a reply. So that's one of the challenges that right now we're nearing a federal election within likely a year, maybe a little more than a year or sooner. And this is where, as people talk about, the politics of the day really come out versus good governance.
Were you hearing locally from businesses, from nonprofits, saying we can't afford this? Is there anything the city can do?
We often hear about taxes, right? Because that's the one that, being the people closest to the community, from that perspective, being in the community basically every day, taxes are on people's minds, and certainly they're frustrated about seeing property tax go up. And we have this explanation: well, the costs of doing business that the city does each and every day to provide the services that people have come to expect have gone up. Our lift costs for water from the river have gone up because of carbon tax. Our wastewater treatment costs have gone up because of the new wastewater treatment plant, but also because there's carbon tax on all the energy we have to use in the processes there. From the, just everything. You can imagine running our arenas for 365 days a year, providing artificial ice to people. Those costs have gone up. The swimming pool, running the BioClean Aquatic Center, has gone up. Everything we touch has gone up, and I attribute a good portion of that to carbon tax.
What's the rebate? What's the city get for a rebate?
The rebate is a goose egg, as they say, or a chicken egg. It's zero. We've been waiting patiently since the carbon tax was introduced. I understand, as a municipal leader, that was shared with other municipal leaders at a national level, that there would be rebates for municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. And to this date, the municipality has not received a rebate on the community's behalf, which is the residents' behalf, for the carbon tax they've paid as a municipality.
Jackie, as I mentioned, I saw you post on Facebook what your costs are directly. Maybe, do you mind sharing us what the costs are here at the Lloydminster exhibition?
Yeah, not at all. In 22-23, our fiscal year, we had close to $30,000 in carbon tax, and that is just on our energy and heating, and that's not on the delivery charges for groceries. That's not on fuel, that diesel we can consume here. That's not on all the little hidden carbon tax that people. Even our mats that we get replaced every week, there's carbon tax on that service. So that doesn't include all of that. We don't have time to dive into all of that little charges, but they do add up. And then this fiscal year, we're already at $22,000, and we're only 6 months in. So we're going to be over $40,000 in carbon tax. This past weekend, we had an amazing weekend here at Lloyd X. We had the Toxic Roundup. We had a massive dance festival, and we had a very large high school rodeo. Are we supposed to pass all those costs on to all those kids? You know, we're not, but we're having to struggle to try to come up with those funds. And that's with staff cuts. That's with more workload on less people. That's with less services, perhaps for other things. So,
Do you feel like you can't put prices up because you're a not-profit?
we really try not to put price up because we're a service to the region. You know, we're a service to other nonprofits that hold their events here. We're a service to 4-H clubs. We're a service to youth. We're a service to the city for toxic waste roundup. You know, our facilities are used in our region for so many diverse things that we don't ever want to make that impossible for people to afford. So our board is just really working hard to create more fundraising, to help to offset some of these, to look at every cost savings we can, so that we don't have to put that up. Because then that just goes back to the 4-H families, that the dance families, all of our user groups, that's not what we want to do either. So.
Well, if you pass your cost on, somebody else is passing the cost on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned something that I never would have thought of, and I don't think gets enough attention, and that's carbon tax on cleaning your rugs. Like getting these rugs switched out from week to week, paying a carbon tax on that, you'd never see that. With the transparency, I don't think that would be included in anybody ever saying, this is why you get back more than you receive. We see it on fuel and we see it on other things. What's your rebate like?
0.
So a non-profit,
we're in the same
zero rebate.
Same boat as our city and municipalities. Yeah.
You in the same boat as that, Jody? You
Yeah.
get a rebate?
No, but I want to start off on a slightly different note because, as I shared before we came onto the air here for the interview, there sometimes is language getting used that influences people's emotions. And so I wanted to take an opposite look. So if you agree with the carbon tax, because some people do, so what is their viewpoint on it? And so I looked up some of the benefits that are being promoted out there. They're saying families are going to get rebates, and then the government's opinion, these family rebates should outweigh, and then they list a few different things. They list fuel, which is the most common, and they list food. It should offset that. And then the second thing is, when you look at the opposite point of view, how do they view someone that is in disagreement with the carbon tax? And I shared it with you again. This is from different reporting agencies owned by media companies, and they do say that. They are media companies, but they're trying to report what they believe are the facts.
Right.
And if I take an opposite view towards the carbon tax, they say I'm a climate denier. I kind of feel strongly about that because BioClean, for an example, for 9 years since we started, we're getting into our 10th year, we're trying to be as environmentally friendly as possible. We're trying to do as much as possible. I know the city also does this. Jackie talks about the toxic roundup. Like, so many citizens are concerned about climate change. We're concerned about our children, our grandchildren, and so on. We're concerned about our environment. And so when we state an opposite view, such as I don't agree with this carbon tax, I would like some more explanation to understand who is getting rebates, who is not getting rebates. Why are costs going up for businesses, nonprofits, municipalities? Who pays for that? How can that be absorbed without increasing costs across the board for everyone? So I think the narrative is, well, the one article said, if you're a climate denier, which I don't believe any of us at this table are, you're a doomsayer. And I think it's that narrative that people need to understand. We're in search of the facts. Why are municipalities not getting refunds? Why are they not getting rebates? Why are nonprofits not getting rebates? And then for us as businesses, yeah, very similar. And we expressed it just before the program started. We're seeing it across the board. So if I go to buy from a box retailer, a supplier, a chemical supplier, some that deals in PPE, so that's personal protective equipment for our workers, they will either deliberately raise costs, but they're transparent, which we super appreciate. All of our costs are going up for all of your supplies across the board. Every single item, and so not just fuel. As Jackie mentioned, food is going up. As the mayor mentioned, there's labor costs that are going up because of transportation costs having to go up. So there's nobody that's not being affected by it. And I think the other thing is when I went onto the news articles to talk about how the carbon tax is going to help the environment going forward. Electric vehicles. And this is something I feel very passionately about. I was recently down in Dallas for a conference and got to drive in a Tesla for the first time. A very incredible vehicle. And I got talking to the owner because he has a relative that lives in Chicago. And as some of you may have read in the news not that long ago, when Chicago went through a deep freeze, electric vehicles simply didn't work. And we have a very rural environment. So if I was able to find an electric truck that currently doesn't exist, and I was able to invest our money into buying an electric vehicle, but I have to go out to Aalbers, which is a few hours north of us, or I've got to go down south into Coronation area. I'm going to help rural people out in Oy and Alberta. I think most people know where these locations are, have a good general idea. They're a few hours outside Lloydminster. And they don't have construction services or disaster services. They rely on us to travel. The electric vehicle doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. And if I've got to go out in -20, -30, hauling out trailer loads of items to help with this person through a disaster, I've got no way to recharge a vehicle. And even for some of the hybrid models that they've tested, in our environment, they're not reliable. I don't like the fact that we're so heavily reliant on fossil fuels. On a personal level, at the same time, that's what we have right now. And a lot of our gas-powered equipment is what we need in our ever-changing climate that we have here in Canada. Next Friday is supposed to be a low of 5 and a high of 25. We'll go through huge environmental changes. And in a day, construction services and the city and nonprofits have to be prepared that they have vehicles, equipment, maintenance items, heavy loaders, road cleaning equipment that cannot run off, not yet. No. And when the day comes that that's all readily available, wonderful. But in the meantime, and I've expressed this, what I view it as personally, not on behalf of BioClean, but as a personal citizen of Lloydminster in Canada, proud to be here, it feels like a punitive tax. If somehow you cannot get with the times and somehow your company cannot embrace more electrical items in your business, we're going to impose this upon you as a bit of a punishment. And that seems to be the narrative that I face as a citizen, not as a business owner. It seems like it's a punitive tax. And as a citizen, I'm sure I'll get a rebate in the mail too at some point. But it's a drop in the bucket compared to how much extra is being passed along. So anytime that one of your viewers goes and they do their own home renovation project, please don't be fooled. Costs are going up. And box retailers and paint stores and lumber suppliers and everyone, they're not just passing along to us as construction or onto cities or nonprofits. They're passing it on to the person that's walking into the box store to buy those paint supplies. They want to do a weekend warrior project. This is getting passed along to everyone, and I don't believe that narrative is being said properly.
We heard from the mayor saying, well, taxes, it'll affect your taxes. Jackie said they haven't put prices up here. I'm sure they'd like to recuperate some of that. Have you put your price up, or are you able to?
That's a great question. A lot of people don't understand in construction services, there's two types of projects. Because we specialize in disaster services, our pricing is controlled by insurance companies. And at this time, they're trying to catch up. There's a few insurance companies that are recognizing our costs are going up, and they're trying to increase their pricing to us. So let's say I come into here and there's a large-scale disaster. We've got some ceiling tiles, some drywall, some flooring that needs to be replaced. Wonderful.
Just hypothetical, Jack.
Absolutely. Sorry, didn't mean to make you nervous.
Let's just touch wood. Everything's good here today.
I'll knock on my hard wooden head. When we go, we measure what the damages are. And then we submit those damages to insurance. And generally speaking, they tell us what they're going to pay. And those price lists are updated monthly. And fuel costs are one thing that are very difficult in Canada. They go on the Government of Canada website and see what the Government of Canada is paying employees for personal vehicle use. That dictates how much we can charge for fuel. So right now, I believe we're sitting at about 62 cents a kilometer that we can charge after 100 kilometers. So every time our trucks fire it up, and right now we have to have fossil fuels, like we haul heavy loads, thousands of pounds in some cases. Every time our trucks fire up, we have to travel a radius of 100 kilometers round trip for free. Now, how do we pass it along to anyone? The insurance companies don't pay us. So what we do is we have to absorb the cost. We have no choice. If we want to do insurance work, we have to absorb it. So we see our costs going up. We see our retained earnings going down. But we have maintenance just like everyone else. So we have to paint our offices once in a while. We have to replace flooring. Our trucks have insurance. Our building has insurance. And all those costs continue to go up and up and up. And they have. And I was going to bring some examples, but I don't want to show it to anyone. On the bottom line, so many of these companies, they say, carbon tax, $25, carbon tax, 2%, carbon tax, 3%. And we have no choice because we have to deal with certain suppliers in our limited trading area. So it's just something I don't think is being talked about on a continuous enough basis. Do I agree that climate change is necessary? Absolutely, I think we all do. Do I agree that in the future, if everything was electrified and in a perfect world, or we could run off of hydrogen or something like that, and we can reduce fossil fuels, which does perhaps increase carbon, it's wonderful. That's just absolutely phenomenal. It just doesn't exist. And so up until that exists, what's happening is businesses, nonprofits, municipalities, and others, farmers and so on, all of these different organizations are getting a punitive tax to pay for something going forward. And then we talk about rebates. We talk about the government investing in certain companies. So if I apply to the government for a subsidy and say, I am trying to add on solar power onto my bill, and it's going to cost me for all the infrastructure upgrades, like the solar power is $60,000. That's just for solar. Then I have to update my electrical, have to update my roofing, have to make sure it's protected. We get weird weather out here. We get storms. We get lots of snow. We get hail. So those panels have to be protected in some way as well. So we did a cost. It's between $150,000 to $200,000 investment. So do I go to the government and say, listen, you've just sponsored 3 electric vehicle companies, auto-based, for batteries or for building autos in Ontario? Wonderful. Might create some jobs. Excellent. But billions of dollars are pouring into those projects without taking into account whether anything is actually be realized. And I think that's the biggest problem. There's no real accountability that's being expressed to us as Canadian citizens saying, we are spending your tax money wisely. We're actually taking this carbon tax and doing something positive with it. What the appearance is, from my point of view, is that some of these companies, specifically auto right now, because they're leading the charge, and good for them, wonderful, but they're getting billions of taxpayer dollars with no guarantees that they're going to be able to produce, say, a truck for a construction company or a loader for a city project that has to take place, tractors that need to move around equipment out here and so on. They can't produce it. So up until somebody invests in that and actually makes it real for Canadian citizens, it's just, it seems, again, to just be a punitive tax that's being forced upon us and saying, you must accept it. And if I dare to speak out and say, I don't agree with it, then I'm labeled as something. I'm labeled as a climate denier, and it's just something that the language surrounding raising an opposing opinion is becoming almost offensive, if I can say that.
Gerald, I saw you nodding when he brought up the, big billions of dollars being put into battery plants for electric vehicles. You look like you got something on your mind. You want to
Oh
add
yeah,
to that?
I do. I appreciate the support we receive for grants from the federal and provincial governments for projects that benefit everyone. The challenge you've got is you've got local entrepreneurs every day, starting with the farmers, going out and they're going to invest millions of dollars this spring, if not billions of dollars in essence, to grow a crop and hopefully make money. Why do they do that? Because they take a risk. They take a chance. They might buy some crop insurance, hail insurance, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be profit. When we start feeding millions and billions of dollars into businesses that aren't prepared to invest because they don't see the profit without that billions of dollars investment, that concerns me. And maybe it was because somebody that was near and dear to my heart, my dad, said, anytime government gets into business, it usually messes it up. And that dates back into the early 70s and some of the farm programs back then that I remember him talking about. He says it's just not in the best interest that government get in business, and I agree with that. I carry that forward today. And we're, as a city, people have often said, well, the city should be in this business or we should get involved with business, and we are there to set policy, regulations, and bylaws. We're not there to run business. We don't, and recreation and culture is a whole interesting beast. We could go down a different rabbit hole there, but from the perspective, we just shouldn't be in business, and that concerns me when the province or the feds, especially the federal government, and Jody really hit the nail on the head, billions of dollars to invest, and they're saying, well, we're competing around the world. The U.S. is doing some, but they don't have a carbon tax. Mexico is doing a little bit. They don't have a carbon tax. I think France is the only one I'm aware of with a carbon tax of a major G7 country. India doesn't have a carbon tax. China doesn't have a carbon tax. Russia doesn't have a carbon tax. The Saudis and people in the Middle East that have made a lot of money from oil are looking at alternate energy because they see some value there as well. But they don't have a carbon tax. So it's really, really interesting. They're investing their money. The folks in the Middle East are investing money in various diversifications because they realize oil may not be the end all. And you're absolutely right, Jody. I think from a perspective, but I just want to remind people, electric cars, I understand, do not do well on gravel roads. And how many gravel roads do we have around here? We make the world's best asphalt. Where does that come from? It comes from heavy oil. You can't make it with light oil. You can't make it with West Texas intermediate oil. You need heavy Canadian crude that's got some asphaltenes to make that asphalt that we enjoy, love driving on each and every day. So there's a relationship people need to understand. We cannot be just totally oil free. We can't be natural gas free. It's just not possible. When you think of all the plastic we're looking at, we've got cell phones here and the different containers here at the X, that comes from a byproduct of natural gas. So unless, and Jody really hit it, unless you really follow the trail and go all the way down the rabbit holes, they say, and figure out where natural gas is used in all the breakdowns and all the items of oil. I won't make I should have brought the list, because there's some great lists of about 500 different products that people use every day, starting in the morning in their bathrooms, or from that perspective to the time you go to bed, that are all oil related or natural gas related.
The other thing Jody mentioned is, these could create jobs. So if an auto company gets billions of dollars, they could create jobs. But Jackie, you mentioned something that really caught my ears. It's costing jobs, because you guys have decided you can't put your prices up, so you'll cut employees. Have you had to cut employees, Jody?
Yeah, I had a visit from actually one of our suppliers this morning before coming over to this meeting. It's a very large known company across Canada, and I'm not going to name them by name, but he was very transparent that more and more now management is going out and to do what was traditionally field work in our situation. And the reason why, and this is from our suppliers as well, so in terms of going onto the chemical floors, assisting with the boxing, assisting with the shipping and receiving, because how do you continue to absorb those costs? It comes out of your profit. Well, that's good. You made, $500,000 profit last year. That sounds phenomenal, until you take it down and then you pay into your costs of, say, your building and your maintenance. Because if you got a couple $1 million company, that costs a lot to maintain every year. I'm sure the mayor could speak to the maintenance programs. I'm sure Jackie can speak to the maintenance of the vehicles and the building and the upkeep and the janitorial services, because someone has to clean this and someone has to clean City Hall and someone has to make sure that the oils are getting changed, and all these different maintenance costs that go into it. To build on the mayor's comment that he mentioned about the investment that Canada has committed to making to some automakers and some battery manufacturers, there's 2 points I found. Number one, these companies were not going to invest unless they had guarantees. In fact, one of the companies, when they found out, they started, and you can look this up for yourself, and I'm not going to name them because I'm not here to shame anyone. That's not our purpose, I think, is just have a conversation. So one of the companies, an automaker, had made an agreement with the government of Canada for over $10 billion. And they had started work, they started construction. They're guaranteeing, I think it's about 2,300 to 2,500 jobs for their plant, for their region, from start to finish, during the construction process, and then once they also begin production. So it sounds very good. Then they learned that another automaker was going to be doing something very similar, but got a bigger subsidy, a bigger investment from the government of Canada. They shut down, and they threatened to stay shut down until it was matched. And then the premier of that province, so you can look it up for himself, he went on record and says, we have to give this company more. We have to be fair. But they had agreed already to an initial subsidy, an initial, all this money coming towards billions of dollars. And they'd agreed to it, and they were fine with it. And then they found out another company was getting more money from the government, and they stopped and said, the government isn't doing enough for us. So that kind of pains my conscience a little bit. Is our government being held hostage to further negotiations after a contract is already entered into? That a company can simply say, well, now we've changed our price, we've changed our plans, so you must give us more taxpayer money, right? And I'm going to just use that language, hopefully specifically. It's not government money. It's taxpayer money. It's your money. It's my money. It's the viewers' money that's out there.
It's the only income.
We're going to give more money. And this company didn't even want to invest in Canada in the first place until they had a commitment that the government's going to be involved. And then going back to Mr. Mayer's comment, sorry, I almost called you by your first name. Going back to Mr. We know each other a little bit off camera. Going back to Mr. Mayer's comment about government being involved in business, and I totally agree, which is why I would never take any grant, any subsidy that comes my way, because that's just not how I do business. And I don't fault anyone that does, because it's there for a reason.
That's there.
But the problem I then have with these automakers or battery makers, this is again myself as a citizen just talking, is they're giving these billions of dollars with no guarantee and no involvement and no oversight of how it's being invested. And if the government was to say, listen, you're investing 2/3 of your private money as a private corporation, and the government is going to invest in 1/3, shouldn't the government get to share in 1/3 of that company and provide some oversight rather than just giving it out there and hoping that maybe a couple thousand jobs will be developed, hoping a couple thousand jobs, and there's no guarantee for any of this. So we're giving away your money, your money, your money, your money. We're giving away our money with no guarantees of nothing, in the hopes that our climate's going to get better, in the hopes these companies are able to fulfill something, which so far at least one of them has temporarily stopped and then restarted once they got additional funding promised towards them. And it just gives me a very uneasy feeling. You know, I don't lie awake at night thinking about it, nothing like that. But it gives me an uneasy feeling. You go to pay your taxes and you go to pay your taxes and you never want to do the wrong thing with that. And then you see it not being accounted for properly. And I think at the very minimum, I know China used to have a rule, I don't know if they still do. If you start a business in China, China would get involved in your business until you paid them back so much money. And in Canada here, we're just, I'm going to say, we're giving away free money, if that's all right, without the government having any guarantees that I can see, and also having no investment in that company. So if that company turns a profit, who gets that? Do they repay those subsidies? Do they repay all those grants? I'm assuming not, based on what I've found in national media. It appears
I didn't see anything saying it was a loan.
It looks like this is just money being invested, but then those companies profit, right? Specific companies get to profit, which I believe is kind of unfair. We've got startups, we've got nonprofits, we've got ranchers and farmers. The mayor, that's just a beautiful expression. Every year they go out and I'm going to do my job, right? I want to get food out to people. I want to get my wheat, I want to get my grain, I want to get my livestock, and I want to help in my community as well. I want to give back. And all of a sudden, we're kind of seeing like a mixed message from the government as well. We can do whatever we like with the money because we know what's best for you. And yeah, it's a voting season coming up, and I think, Mr. Mayor, maybe we'll see something happen this year. Hopefully, maybe some people express some opinions and don't stay quiet as much as they used to.
Well, that will be an interesting piece because certainly this is the challenging part that, you know, what's people's thoughts? I really hope people take a hard look and, you know, look at all the facts because, you know, there's I hate to say it, rhetoric on both sides, potentially on the federal side, but at the same token, there's some truth there. And if you can get to the bottom truth and start to look at things, it's not easy. Being an elected official, it's not easy to, when people say, you know, you're dealing with my money. Absolutely. I deal with the taxpayers' money every day from the city's perspective. And when we make decisions on whatever we do and wherever we see that it's being budgeted and allocated to. But it's challenging because the one level is we don't run a deficit where federally and provincially they have that ability, and it changes the perspective. And I really, that's a tough perspective because we can't continue to spend more than we have coming in. And when is that going to change? And when we're doing it, as you said, for various reasons and companies, who's picking the winners and losers? That's the challenge. That's really what it comes down to.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll ask what can be done to reduce carbon footprint. We'll ask about supporting your community because we know the mayor mentioned the BioClean Aquatic Center. Your name is on the BioClean Aquatic Center, and we'll find out if Jody's able to support the community as much as he used to. And we've got some questions about rebates too, because the budget has been announced, and it looks like businesses will be getting some money back. But how transparent is that? We've got more on that when we come back here at the Lloydminster Exhibition on Live with Kurt Price.
At Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector. building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
Welcome back. Superior Water is proud to provide you with the purest drinking water possible. I like drinking Superior Water because I like the taste. I believe it is superior. I think it's the best water around. And at just $3 a jug, you get a nice, consistent taste. And don't forget, ice for that Crown Royal on a hot summer day is just $2 a bag. 2 locations in Lloydminster with Superior Water. You can visit them beside Sheepskin Loft on 57th Avenue. And if you need help with the big blue jugs, you won't have to ask for it. And you can also visit their coin-operated location by 7-Eleven, just off Highway 17 South. At Superior Water, water treatment is what they do, and they do it well. We're back with Jody Herbus, the owner of BioClean Disaster Services. Jackie Tomayer is the general manager here at the Lloydminster exhibition, and Mayor Gerald Aalbers making his second appearance on the program in less than a week, so we really appreciate that as well. We've been talking about the carbon tax and its effects on business, basically. Jackie, let's start. Jody mentioned he could put solar panels on his roof. Have you guys looked into, is there anything you can do to reduce that carbon footprint?
Yeah, there's definitely some talk amongst ag societies to maybe try and become more energy efficient. Like Jody said, it's a massive investment, so you need that. We run as a nonprofit, and we don't have $3 million at the end of the year to then invest into that green technology as much as we would love to. Right? We want to be as energy efficient as possible, like everyone else. But as far as when we have conversations with government and things like that, ag societies across our Western Canada, across Canada, are really struggling with maintenance of these massive facilities that 20 years ago the government helped us build. So the government helped us build them. They gave us, which is great, but now they said, now we're 20, 30 years down the road. Maintenance is failing, roofs are failing. You don't have a roof, you don't have a building, and now just all these costs for carbon tax are starting to really. There's even carbon tax on entertainment. Like there's just so many things that we touch, that it touches, that you just don't think about. It's just so much farther reaching than just heating and cooling and natural gas.
Yeah, if a band is traveling across the country, they're going to charge more.
Yep.
Because it's going to cost more to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
When Jody was talking about, the billions of dollars being invested, and you're saying, well, if we could get some money, we could really make a difference here on our roof. What do you think when you hear the federal government giving billions of dollars to different companies?
Again, Jody hit the nail on the head. Those billions of dollars would actually make a difference. There's no outcome to batteries and electric vehicles, right? There's no known outcome. But if you outfit some of these buildings and the mayor, his municipal buildings as well, that would actually make a difference. That would actually reduce some of our carbon footprint.
Can I add to that comment?
Yeah.
I am sometimes the interrupter, so please forgive me. Again, being down in Dallas recently and talking to a Tesla owner, a proud Tesla owner, and his family has them because in their environment it works quite well. And so I asked him about the battery situation. 7 to 10 years is the expected lifespan of these batteries, which means these battery companies are going to continue to use resources for decades to come in the foreseeable future. Because even the batteries have a limited lifespan.
That's right.
Now, how many of your viewers are driving vehicles that are more than 7 to 10 years old, and maybe they've had to replace a transmission, or maybe they've even had to replace an engine, but maybe they're low kilometer usage, and they can continue to drive those vehicles. I know a local fellow here, I don't know if he's still around, I hope he is. He had his, I almost said the brand name, he had his car for more than 1 million kilometers. He maintained it well. A gas-powered engine with oil and solar. These batteries are guaranteed from the manufacturer to last 2 to 10 years maximum, and then will require replacement. And so again, I think it's just, It's something that's not being discussed. Are fossil fuels the way of the future? No. Am I a climate denier? Absolutely not. Do I like extra carbon emissions? Who does? That's just a ridiculous statement. Nobody's saying that. But we're saying that the investment that's happening into these companies is not really being fully investigated. And for us to go and do an investment, we're being asked to use our money to go and do it, which I'd love to if I have extra cash laying around. But some places like nonprofits, they have to operate a very strict budget, where at the end of the year, they could be in a deficit, they could be at $0 left over for that year, they don't have extra funding. So why is there not a conversation with existing buildings, organizations that we know are important to Canadian citizens? Why are they not at least being allotted a portion of this money? Why is it going to for-profit organizations that we know can I almost said one of the companies' names. One of the companies, the car companies, is very well known for making huge profits for their shareholders. Wonderful. Are they giving back? You've touched on that, giving back. Are they giving back in a meaningful way to local communities? It's nice to make one big national donation to, say, a hospital for $1 million. Wonderful. If your company's worth $50 billion, it's not that bad to give $1 million donation to a hospital. It's kind of a drop in the bucket. But it's organizations in our local communities, not just in Lloydminster, not just in Alberta, all across Canada. Mr. Mayor touched on, the fishermen that are out on the East Coast, on the West Coast. Everyone's being affected across Canada. And I just am not seeing enough narrative about that story.
If you were to get a rebate, because nobody gets a rebate yet, Jody, you may get a rebate. That's the only one that I can see having a rebate in the federal budget that was announced. I don't see anything about nonprofits. I don't see anything about communities. I did see Saskatchewan small businesses could see up to $7,000, Alberta up to $4,000. If you were to get that rebate, what would you do with it? Would you invest it in the greener technology like they'd hoped you would, or would you have the ability to do that, or would you, like Jackie, if you were to get a rebate, I'm pretty sure you'd like to bring back some employees, but what would you do? I don't know too much about electric vehicles outside of the cars and the SUVs. I know they've tried some electric trucks. From what I've seen, they've not been successful. I can't invest in something if I'm not guaranteed that I can't respond to a client on a moment's notice. Because we are first responders as disaster responders. Right. So we always need to have vehicles and equipment ready. So let's just take a regular heavy-duty truck. Okay. For what we need for our purposes. Anywhere from, because we like to buy them new, so the maintenance is less on them right off the bat. Go down, let's say we had $70,000 to $90,000 for a heavy-duty truck that meets our purposes for towing and capacity and things like that. And I get $7,000 rebate. Like, it just, the notion that somehow giving a family $800, giving a business $7,000 is somehow giving back from the federal government. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it is kind of a laughable matter. Like, it doesn't even scratch the surface of the continued increased costs we're seeing. And I'm not, again, I want the climate to change. I want the climate to be healthy in the future. We want to have less carbon emissions. And there's a lot of companies that are trying, and they have the capability to do it. But these so-called rebates, I'm using that word deliberately, so-called, as a so-called rebate, it's not going to help a family. It isn't. And do the research yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm just sitting here as an observer and a participant, but please don't take my word for it. I would hate for you to take my word. Do your research. Look it up for yourself. How much are your costs going up? Do your kids play in sports? Are things getting more expensive? Do your kids travel for sports? How is that affecting the team? You know, that's just one aspect of Lloydminster. Arts, music. Your family has a gifted child that wants to play a musical instrument. How are those costs going up? And they want to go to participate in a festival somewhere. And then hotels go up. We've seen that. And airfare has gone up tremendously. Like, we've seen all these increases. So to make a blanket statement, well, you'll be paying a few dollars more at the pump and a few dollars more for food, but this rebate's going to offset it. It's just not a true statement, unfortunately.
The math doesn't math.
What would you, if you got a rebate, Jackie, what would that rebate have to be for you to be able to do the things that would actually make a difference on your green energy bill?
We're projecting $40,000 in carbon tax, so we would be great to have that back.
You'd need $40,000. That's a good point. Jody mentioned $7,000 drop in a bucket, $4,000 even less. Mr. Mayor, you.
It started about 275 to 300,000 to make 1% in the mill rate, to make that to make a dent in that. So, a couple of those would be great from that perspective, because we're looking at I think budget when we brought it forward, we were looking at a 4 or 5% increase to keep up with inflation. And I attribute, again, we've talked about how carbon taxes influenced inflation and that perspective. So, yeah, we're talking $1 million for the city. $1 million would make a significant, it would certainly help.
Mr. Mayor, I might not be as intelligent as the rest of the crew here, so if he can clarify. So with the increase in carbon taxes that's happening to the municipalities, including Lloydminster, am I understanding that it has to be passed along to the citizens through either increased taxes or something? What does that look like?
Well, it really, thanks for that, Jody. The question that we get challenged with every year is either, as our costs continue to increase, do we raise taxes to provide the same level of services, or do we decrease services? And, this is a challenge, because I've had people say, well, that you can close an arena, it wouldn't bother me. But I said it would, because if those young people and the adults aren't healthy, you're going to be paying more in provincial health care tax, because people aren't as healthy as they should be. Mental health is a huge issue. If people don't get together and participate, and we saw that after the last couple of years, that was challenging. Let alone, I don't mean to pick on our youth, but if youth are idle, we've all been there, and I know, Kurt, you left a mark in Landis. We won't talk about that right now, but from the perspective of youth, if they're not active and out, they're going to find something else to do, and it's going to not be as productive, and that's going to result in more other services. And the average RCMP officer today is $225,000 cost. Not that they get paid that much, but that's the cost to have an RCMP officer. So if you call for more services from the RCMP because people have more time on their hands and not putting it to good use, that's $225,000. So everything is tied to it from that perspective. So, decreasing services, we're open to that. Let's have that conversation. But, we can have an awful good discussion about what those services, all the benefits. So bottom line is, as our costs continue to rise, taxes have to go up, because back to it, we haven't seen any huge increase in capital grants and operating grants. Again, in the case of Saskatchewan, it chases the economy. 2 years ago, our numbers are up 14%. But in the same token, our costs have gone up over a period of time, and that is it's an up and down cycle. Alberta, again, we've had a reduction in some operating costs, or operating grants, I apologize, and capital. So, and federally, that's just a game of roulette. I know mayors that when we got the money for the wastewater treatment plant, they were mad. They were really mad at me. How'd you get it and why didn't we? Because they had the same concerns. Then when we were able to access, we were successful with some grant money from Saskatchewan, the feds, for the new Cenovus Energy Hub. Well, boy, same thing. They were trying to build rinks and recreation facilities and going, how did you guys get that? So we've been very lucky at that game, and I don't know when our luck's going to run out, but that's hard, because Jackie can, I'm sure, attest to that. When you try and do a capital plan and you apply, you might be 3 to 4 years before you get the grant money. I can tell you where the costs have gone. Cenovus Energy Hub's a perfect example. Just by simply any delays were millions of dollars, not just $1 million, millions of dollars if there's delays. And we've got a couple different examples of not putting a shovel in the ground in Regina. They're saying 10% per year. They've got 8 years of capital projects in the city of Regina, and I've watched this one very closely. And they're saying by 2020, from when they started, 2023, by 8 years, it'll be 80% more money. So where does that money come from? And, everybody wants more swimming pools. They want more skating rinks. They love when we do things to the Vic Juba, and, the list goes on. I could build more pickleball courts, volleyball courts, field houses, soccer pitches, cricket pitch. The list, I got a list. It's a running list, but where does the money come from?
Jody, your name's on the BioClean Aquatic Center. Jackie, you have sponsorships on the People Give Back in this community. Are you able to do that with increased costs? You've mentioned everything is going up. I did see, I saw you were sponsoring this morning. One of the first things that came up on my Facebook feed was you are sponsoring the Residence and Recovery Golf Tournament. What are you able to do as much as you used to do, or have you cut back?
So I think if a viewer or listener doesn't fully comprehend, when you're an owner of a business, it's your money. And I don't agree in taking bank loans. That's just me personally. I don't agree in handouts or anything like that. I believe you start a business, you invest your own money, and then you give back when you can. And so when I give back, or our family gives back, we give back our family's money. So it might be under the BioClean name, which we appreciate because it's advertising for our business to some extent and telling people who we are. We're in the community giving back. But it's our family money that we're giving back because it's our money that we invested in the company from the start, and then we try to grow it. So the logical answer is, as our profits continue to shrink, in part due to carbon tax and other rising costs, as the profits shrink, where's the money come from? Well, it comes from the family, but the money is no longer there. The family is invested and they're not seeing back on their investments. Like if you invest in a stock and you buy the stock at $100 and it goes down to 80, well, you've lost $20 and you might continue to stay in that stock to hope it goes up. So businesses are very much like that. That's exactly what a business is. If we do have additional income that we don't require for keeping our infrastructure up to date, our vehicles up to date, our families taken care of, then we can definitely give back to the community. Absolutely. And we love it. You know, smiles on our faces. The problem that then happens is, what if there's no money to give because it's being absorbed into other things? Costs, I think everyone would agree. Costs continue to rise, and then prices have to rise. You can't pay someone more money and continue to sell the same service at the same price, or the business doesn't have profitable and then it closes. And we've all seen businesses go bankrupt because of that, because their costs outweigh their profits. And so we always want to make sure we got enough profit for what if there's a rainy day. You know, Jody made $20,000 profit in the last quarter. Wonderful, he should be giving it back. I'm not guaranteed it, like a farmer's not guaranteed it, like a rancher's not guaranteed. We have no guarantees in our business that construction services are going to continue, or a disaster may occur, or something else might transpire, or heaven forbid another pandemic. I'm knocking on my hard-wooden head saying that silliness. But it does come down to that. So then business owners have to put aside money for a rainy day in case of a slow period, right? We have to budget no different than a nonprofit or a city has to. And so we have to be wise with our money. So we might want to save up a reserve, and until that reserve is fully satisfied for potential future expenses, there's no money to give. So in a roundabout way, I hope I told you, the answer is no. There's less money now to invest back into our communities than ever before, certainly since I've been in this type of business.
The city, the Lloydminster Exhibition, they both have sponsorships, whether it's on ice, whether it's on rink boards, whether it's to bring 4-H in.
Yep,
you know,
events.
are you seeing a decrease in sponsorship? Is it harder to get?
Yeah, and it's not for a lack of wanting to do it. That the businesses want to do it, our partners want to help us. It's just not possible. So yeah, we're doing more with less. We value every single partner we have, and we understand that they're doing the best they can. We truly believe that. But yeah, it's just less. It's just not as much as it used to be.
Mayor, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can. And thanks, Jody. You really put it well, especially from businesses and perspectives. And I think the other piece I've heard from businesses is that to draw employees as the businesses continue to grow in our city, people say, well, what do you have for amenities? And it's kind of nice having a swimming pool. It's kind of nice having the Vic Juba, the library, the Synovus Energy Hub, and all the facilities that we've had. And in every one of those cases, certainly a good number of them, those have come with the help of the community. The municipality's been there. I hope other municipalities join in on projects that benefit the entire area from that perspective. The days of old of people simply coming to Lloyd and shopping, and that that because of supporting the local business was enough to carry things. We have artificial ice now that we didn't have 40 years ago when we had natural ice, when everybody volunteered at the arena. Everybody put a shift in the kitchen, their parents, their family, things like that. Things have changed. We live in a whole different dynamics with unionized from the city perspective of the employees. That's just what we have to work with. We have ice 365 days a year available for people to skate on from that perspective. They pay user fees, but again, it just doesn't, that's that expectation. The Vic Juba, we support annually annually, every year. And that has a lot of great sponsors and donors, but yet the city hurts it to just around the $200,000 mark, and there's still more capital needs. That facility is used on a regular basis, and again, as Jackie said, it's been run basically as a non-profit by the board of directors. They haven't been turning a huge profit because they've been trying to keep rates reasonable so families can take a show in, and you don't have to not say, boy, I wish I'd like to go to that show. We can't go to Edmonton. That can we afford to go to Lloyd? Yeah, because we have a very reasonably priced show for families, for individuals, for couples, and we draw people, which is all terrific. But at the same token, who pays the bill at the end of the day?
And yeah, the Vic supports a lot of our youth, dance competitions, singing competitions, like all of that stuff. And if that gap gets too wide, as much as business wants to help, as much as the municipality wants to help, prices are going to have to go up. And
that money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, and I think we can all relate on this side. It's challenging times, and how do we try to resolve that? And it's hard. I think we've all looked inside. I know the ex has looked very deeply inside. I'm sure Jody's looked pretty hard inside his business, and we have as well at the city, ensuring that we're trying to provide the best value we can. It's always hard because it doesn't matter if it's one of the three of us in the different groups. People say, well, you could have done it better, you could have done it cheaper. Well, it's not that easy. I know they'd welcome members to the board of directors. If you want to know how well the X is run, that you'll find that out. Jody is a business owner. You can talk to any business owner in town. They've had challenges, and they're not through the challenges yet. And from a municipality, we want to grow. We want to continue to provide what people want to make this their home, a place to raise their family, to work, to retire. But we have certain limitations, and that includes that we don't control hospitals, nursing homes, and a lot of the other services that people are counting on.
Well, Jody, you mentioned something that really struck a chord with me, because I think it goes with businesses and it goes with families as well. Having that reserve money to be able to say, I can now afford to buy a ticket to go to see a concert. But I have to have that reserve because COVID did something to me that it got me worried. I got laid off over COVID. So is that going to happen again? Am I going to get to a point where, something happens and all of a sudden I've seen for myself firsthand, there could be emergency anytime, there could be a pandemic anytime, and all of a sudden I have to be a little bit more selfish with my dollars. I just have to be. Mayor, I think they're having a little hard time bringing in volunteers for the Saskatchewan Summer Games. We haven't seen an uptick in volunteers the way that I think the committee would agree they would hope to. And I wonder if that's not people, I can't volunteer as much as I did because I'm working extra hours or I've got two jobs. I'm here and I'm there because I'm trying to make ends meet more than ever.
I think there's a combination, Kurt. You've hit a few of those. You're right, challenges that way. For some, are they prepared to take a couple days vacation time to do that if they have to do that if they're working? For seniors, some seniors have become a little more reserved, a little more worried about their health, and that's really a challenge that we're going to try and address. But I'll make that plea. I've done it a few different times. I really hope people in our community and surrounding area offer up a shift, 2 shifts, 5 shifts every day, whatever is available, to welcome those young people to our community, because these are our future athletes. These are people that we could, in a couple of years, see standing on Olympic podium representing Canada, because this is the stepping stone. You start locally, you go to the provincial level and summer games and winter games, then you go on to the Canada Summer Games potentially and lead you to the Olympic team. This is where the athletic people are out watching. They're looking for those stars that shine, and this is just part of that. And to be part of that, that's exciting to see the energy that they bring, but it's going to take volunteers, and I encourage people to come out of your comfort zone just a little bit. If you said, well, I used to volunteer, and I hear this from every nonprofit group in town, and Jackie no different, finding people, well, I just don't have time, or I'm just not interested. Well, folks, we need some interest. We need you to get fired up. This is a great beginning. I'd love to see us start a trend that the summer games have all the help. Jackie's going to need help with the Lloyd Fair this summer, and the exhibition needs help here with people. And they've got a long history, yet you're struggling to find volunteers. And every other organization that's in town that's doing such good work, often depends on volunteers. And it may be simply selling tickets at the door right outside here and taking money with Mike Sidoric. You'll have to keep Mike in check. We'll take a little kick at Mike. He's not here to defend himself. But, you know, there's so many great things you can get involved in. And we just ask people. And talking to friends of mine in other communities where we've lived, and they're hearing the same things. It's harder to find people to come out at a dance festival. It's harder for somebody to come out and help the local Lions Club bartend and put on a raffle and things like that. And I really encourage people to take a look and say, hey, can you spare that extra day or two, that couple hours? That's what's so important, because that's what makes our community a great place it is.
And I think that ties into business. I think in the past we would have seen business offer a paid shift to go volunteer, and they maybe can't afford that now. They can't afford to lose that worker, or they can't afford. But you know, I've encouraged my staff. I've signed up as a volunteer. I've encouraged my staff to sign up, and I've said we're gonna help you get your volunteer hours in, because that's very important. This event is massive to our community, and we all need to challenge, get involved, and do it.
That is a great point, Jackie. Less employees means having less
resources to call on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is there anything we're forgetting that you wanted to talk about the carbon tax coming in that I haven't asked about? You want people to know about with your business, nonprofit, or the city?
Well, the federal government put out a press release in 2019, and they said in 2020 rebates are coming to small, medium-sized business, nonprofits, municipalities, hospitals, schools. It is 2024. That was.
And then we got the goose egg.
That was put out there, and we're still waiting.
I think one of the things is important for your viewers and listeners to understand, and I have to remind myself of that too. It's a wonderful thing to make our environment a better place. It absolutely is. I would never deny it. I would say that carbon emissions are not healthy for human beings or for the planet as a whole. Anything that could impact a person's health negatively should be looked at in a constructive manner. You try to eliminate that hazard so we live healthier, better lives. We do face a huge challenge in Canada. We have a neighbor to the south. They are 9 times our population. Their industry is 10 times as large as us. They have greater factory counts. The state of California buys more agricultural equipment than all of Canada combined. The state of California buys more agricultural equipment. I have that first-hand knowledge in speaking. I won't mention the company, but they're a large supplier even here in Lloydminster. And what we face is by putting this punitive measure upon Canadians and say we are making Canada a safer place to live as long as the wind always blows from the north to the south. Then we're fine. Heaven forbid it blows from the south to the north because our neighbors to the south aren't doing anything. And I'm not saying Canada shouldn't lead the charge, and that's excellent because there's ways, Canadians are innovators. I watched a program again about the Canada Arm up on the space station. It's wonderful. The mayor talks about innovation. Jackie's trying to do innovation. We got entrepreneurs here in Lloydminster. I think I'm one of them, trying to make environmental positive changes. We use environmentally friendly chemicals for a reason. It costs us more, but we have peace of mind knowing we're not adding back into the wastewater treatment system perhaps harmful chemicals that cost us less. So am I a climate denier? Absolutely no. I'm all for the climate and making it better. But by Canada doing this on its own, giving money to large corporations that are for-profit, this is where I start to scratch my head. This is where I start to have conversations. And thank you so much for having us on the show. I do believe that Canada's investment was not thought out, and I believe it's a punitive measure that's being placed across everyone, from a business to a citizen to a nonprofit to a municipality. I believe we're all paying for something that is going to reduce Canada's emission, which is very small. On the global scale, exceptionally small. It's the David and Goliath, except this time Goliath is going to win, in my opinion, unfortunately, and I'm sad to say that out loud. But it's just that expression. Should we be doing more for the environment? 100%. And should we be educating people? 100%. Should we be trying to find better practices? Absolutely. Should we be taxing our citizens towards that and giving away billions of dollars to for-profit organizations? Absolutely. That's just my opinion as a citizen.
I think for me personally, on a personal level, I wouldn't mind paying a carbon tax if everybody was paying a carbon tax. If you mentioned south of, you mentioned the United States. They're paying a carbon tax. If India's paying a carbon tax, China's paying a carbon tax, everybody's paying their share, then maybe I don't have to pay as much.
Correct.
And maybe I don't care about getting that money back because maybe that money is going into green research. But I do want to ask you, Gerald, because you worked in the oil industry as well, and you're running the city. When we hear Jody say, "I'm all for green energy," I think there's a little bit of hesitation, or maybe people just assume that because we're Western Canada and because we're reliant on oil here for our economy, that green energy is a swear word.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. And, coming from the industry and not being there full time now for 8 years, but, talking to people, those people live in our community, they live around our community, they care about the environment as well. We've done so many things to make things better. Methane emission controls. We've got a local startup company that's a high-tech company that's taking those waste gases and turning it into energy as well, and business. There's so many opportunities, and what is green energy? So there's two pieces to this. There's a base load energy we need, and the only way we know to get that base load is one of basically three ways. We can have hydroelectric, which is pretty much standard. You can have carbon, which would be coal, natural gas, or oil, and most of it is now natural gas. We're phasing out coal. And then we haven't talked about nuclear. Is nuclear green energy? I think it is. It really is. From the perspective, there are spent fuel rods that have to be stored because they still are radioactive, but they've done their thing and be dealt with accordingly. The wind and solar is wonderful, but again, as Jody alluded to, if the wind doesn't blow, the wind turbines don't turn. If the sun doesn't shine, or if your solar panels can't get the sun on them in the winter time because of the snow load, they don't produce. So can we do things? There's lots of things we can do, but if we believe that renewable energy is the only way to go, I'm concerned that the lights aren't going to be on and you're not going to be cooking supper at 6 o'clock tonight, as an example, if that's the case. We need to find a balance and help people understand, get back to basic science. I think it was grade 6 science that taught us about photosynthesis and how much we need carbon dioxide to produce oxygen. Nobody talks about that balance. I wish somebody would, smarter than me for sure on that one, because I got past grade 6. I know you did too, Kurt, but we didn't get, I'm not a scientist that can break that equation down, but that's important. But as an industry, the oil and gas industry, back to asphalt. We need asphalt. Electric cars need grease and lubricants. Those metal on metal does not turn without grease, from that perspective, or some sort of lubricant in the oil. The turbines, the wind turbines, I don't know how many barrels of oil are actually in a wind turbine up in the air, right? That's why they have some issues occasionally when the bearings don't go right and that way. The days of sailing ships, and I follow this a little bit. I think there's a company that's bringing free trade coffee to Canada or to the U.S. by sailing ship. That's terrific. But you know how things have changed. You wouldn't get a container on a sailing ship. One container, let a seagoing freighter that carries thousands of containers, right? The world continues to change, and people say, I wish it could go back. And I just don't know how you go back, because we can't. And I hope we don't, in a way, because I've heard stories from my grandparents when they were alive about chopping wood, hauling water, hauling it in, and you hauled everything else out. If you didn't get up in the morning of the stove, there was no going to touch the thermostat and either push button or a knob, which I'm learning more people have lost the knob after the recycling this past weekend. We recycled some of those knobs, and now it's all digital. The whole idea, could you imagine telling some young people that they're going to have to go out and carry in wood tonight so you can stoke the fire in the morning? Just not going to happen. So, we have some, and this piece right here, that is the game changer in both ways. If you took this away, people would literally crumble, right? Some days I'm ready to throw it away. But, at a play recently, somebody said, what's that funny thing hanging out of a wall that they have to do this to? A rotary telephone with a cord. Our world has changed, and we need to change with it. Jody's talked about it. The environment is precious. We need to look after it, but again, we need to take steps, not baby steps necessarily, but we need to take steps. But if we take leaps and bounds, and we're going to go all battery and all EV, gosh, that's a huge transition, and it may not work. Jody talked about heavy loads. I go to Regina, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary for meetings quite regularly. I get a phone call, I might be in Regina tomorrow. I need to be able to get there in 5-6 hours at the most. I don't have 12 to 15 hours or more to drive 2 hours, 3 hours, plug in, charge for an hour or two, and then do it again and do it again. If you can find a station. And then it gets worse in the wintertime because you either trade distance for heat. That's what I understand talking to people. So around town, absolutely, an electric car might be your answer, an EV. But it may not fit the bulk of people in our community. And we haven't even touched transportation and agriculture. That just concerns the heck out of me. The tractors of today are pulling bigger equipment because farmers are trying to be more efficient. So, how do we expand in this conversation? There needs to be a lot more conversation, and I really challenge the federal government to come out and have those conversations. Sit down and talk to the agricultural producers, talk to the people in business, talk to the loggers, the fishermen, and talk to the people like municipal leaders and the nonprofits, and hear the stories and walk through and say, we can do LED lighting, but Jackie needs maybe $2 million, $500,000, depends on the building, on what's got to be done, and that doesn't grow on trees in our world.
Well, when's the last time a federal minister visited Lloydminster?
I did see Jerry Ritz in PV Mart one day, and we traded greetings and that. But no, you're honestly, and we'll see. We have a grand opening coming up of the wastewater treatment plant. I've encouraged we've invited the federal government to send representatives in the elected format to be here because I'd like to celebrate. That wastewater treatment plant wouldn't be here because of without the federal government either way, because they forced us to build it, but they also provided some capital to support it. But I just don't understand when you have the opportunity to at least, and I know it's not going to be the most comfortable. There'll be people that I'm sure will have some issues with whoever would come from the federal government, but welcome to it. I can tell you my days are not always comfortable being the mayor either, so it's not all flowers.
I want to thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kurt.
And Jackie's going to be here tomorrow, too.
Yes.
We're going to be broadcasting live from the Hot Tub Expo that is happening in the Culligan Water Building right next to us here. We'll be broadcasting live. Jackie's going to tell us about the fair and what we can expect from entertainment to rides and all that kind of stuff. Get those answers going now, Jackie.
Yeah.
And we're also going to talk to the former general manager of the Lloydminster Exhibition, Mike Sidoric, who's with Rotary. They have Lobster Fest happening here. It's like the only Lobster Fest left. So we're going to find out about that. And we're also going to have a parenting group join us tomorrow as well. I've got a huge show tomorrow, so Connecting Parents is going to join us to talk about their event that they've got coming up for Mother's Day. That's all tomorrow right here from the Lloydminster Exhibition and the Hot Tub Expo happening as well on Live with Kurt Price. Thanks for joining us.